The frantic wailing pierced through the peaceful ambience of Riverside Park, catching Hudson Scott's attention immediately. He'd developed a sixth sense for the sound of a child in distress, an instinct honed from 4 years of single fatherhood. Setting aside the worn paperback he'd been reading while his daughter played nearby, Hudson scanned the area until he spotted a little boy, no older than 5, standing alone by the duck pond, tears streaming down his chubby cheeks. "Mia, stay where I can see you, honey," Hudson called to his 6-year-old daughter, who nodded solemnly as she continued building her sand castle in the playground area. Hudson approached the crying child carefully, kneeling down to meet the boy's eye level. His heart ached at the sight of such distressed tears and snot mingling on the child's face, his small body heaving with sobs. "Hey there, buddy," Hudson said gently. "Are you okay? Can I help you find someone?" the little boy hiccuped, his large blue eyes swimming with tears. "I can't find my mommy," he managed between sobs. "That's pretty scary, isn't it?" Hudson kept his voice calm despite the worry building in his chest. "My name's Hudson. What's yours?" "Ethan," the boy whispered. "Nice to meet you, Ethan. I'm going to help you find your mom, okay? She's probably looking for you right now and feeling worried." Hudson offered his hand, which the boy hesitantly took. "Can you tell me what your mommy looks like?" "She's pretty," Ethan said, wiping his nose with his sleeve. "And she has yellow hair like the sun." Hudson nodded, scanning the park again. "That's helpful. Let's walk around a bit, but stay close to me. We'll find her." As they began their search, Hudson distracted Ethan with questions about his favorite superheroes and animals, gradually calming the boy's tears. Hudson knew from experience that keeping a lost child engaged was the best way to prevent further panic. When Mia had gotten separated from him at the county fair last summer, those 15 minutes of searching had aged him a decade. They'd been walking for barely 2 minutes when a frantic female voice called out, "Ethan? Oh my God, Ethan." A tall blonde woman in designer sunglasses and a flowing summer dress raced toward them, her face a portrait of relief and lingering fear. Even in her distressed state, Hudson couldn't help but notice her striking beauty-high cheekbones, clear complexion, and piercing green eyes that became visible when she pushed her sunglasses atop her head. "Mommy." Ethan broke free from Hudson's hand and ran to his mother, who scooped him up in her arms, holding him tightly against her chest. "I was so scared," she murmured into her son's hair. "I turned around for just a second to answer a call, and you were gone." Hudson approached slowly, not wanting to intrude on their reunion, but feeling a responsibility to ensure everything was truly okay. The woman looked up, noticing him for the first time. "Did you find my son?" she asked, her voice thick with emotion. "He found himself, really," Hudson said with a gentle smile. "I just kept him company while he waited for you. I'm Hudson Scott." "Lila Kensington," she replied, extending her free hand. Her grip was firm despite her obvious emotional state. "Thank you so much, Mr. Scott." "I don't know how to repay you." "No need for that," Hudson assured her. "I'm a dad. I know how terrifying it is when you can't find your child. I'm just glad he's safe." Lila's eyes softened. "Well, I'm incredibly grateful nonetheless." She set Ethan down but kept a firm hold on his hand. "We need to have another talk about staying where I can see you, young man." Ethan looked appropriately contrite, digging the toe of his sneaker into the ground. "Sorry, Mommy. I saw the ducks and wanted to give them bread." "You didn't have any bread," Lila said with a sigh that suggested this wasn't their first conversation about wandering off. "I know. I was looking for some," Ethan replied with impeccable child logic. Hudson chuckled, and Lila's lips quirked in reluctant amusement. Their eyes met over Ethan's head, and Hudson felt an unexpected warmth spread through his chest. He quickly averted his gaze, reminding himself that women like Lila Kensington with their perfect hair and clearly expensive clothes didn't typically socialize with men like him. A high school English teacher with perpetually scuffed shoes and a second-hand Honda Civic. "Daddy, I finished my castle." Mia's voice called from the playground. "Coming, sweetheart," Hudson called back. "That's my daughter," he explained to Lila. "I should get back to her." "Of course," Lila said, something unreadable flickering across her face. "Thank you again, Mr. Scott. Hudson, please." And it was no trouble at all. Hudson walked away, feeling Lila's eyes on his back, but resisting the urge to turn around. Some encounters were meant to be brief ships passing in the night, and he had long ago learned to appreciate life's small moments without expecting more. Rejoining Mia at the playground, Hudson pushed away thoughts of striking green eyes and the elegant curve of Lila's neck. His world was here, building sand castles with his daughter and figuring out how to stretch his teacher's salary through another month of rising rent prices and growing child expenses. "Who was that boy, Daddy?" Mia asked as they walked home later, her small hand warm in his. "Just a kid who got separated from his mom. We helped them find each other again. Like when I got lost at the fair. Exactly like that, except less scary because we were in a smaller area." Mia nodded sagely. "It's good you helped him. Mrs. Chen says helping others makes your heart bigger." Hudson smiled at his daughter's repetition of her first-grade teacher's wisdom. "Mrs. Chen is right about that." Their modest two-bedroom apartment welcomed them with familiar comfort, slightly cramped, but filled with books, Mia's artwork, and photographs of the two of them building their life together after Sarah's death 4 years ago. Hudson tried not to think about how the landlord had mentioned another rent increase coming in the fall, or how Mia's shoes were already showing signs of being too small. Instead, he focused on the present, helping Mia with her reading, preparing a simple dinner of pasta with vegetables, and listening to her animated recounting of playground politics. This was his life, sometimes challenging, but always rich with love, and he wouldn't trade it for anything. Hudson had no way of knowing that across town, in a spacious penthouse overlooking the city skyline, Lila Kensington was thinking about him too. 3 days later, Hudson was grading papers during his lunch break at Riverside Elementary when the school secretary buzzed his classroom. "Mr. Scott, there's someone here to see you. A Miss Kensington." Hudson nearly knocked over his coffee. "I'll be right there," he said, quickly straightening his tie and running a hand through his perpetually disheveled dark hair. He found Lila waiting in the front office, looking impossibly polished in tailored trousers and a silk blouse. Several of the administrative staff were eyeing her with undisguised curiosity, visitors driving luxury vehicles and wearing clothes that probably cost more than their monthly salaries weren't exactly common at their modest public school. "Lila," Hudson said, genuinely surprised. "This is unexpected." She smiled, a touch of nervousness in her expression. "I hope I'm not interrupting. I asked Ethan's nanny to do some research and she found out where you work. I wanted to thank you properly for helping my son." "That's really not necessary, please," she interrupted. "I insist." "Just a coffee, or lunch if you have time." Hudson hesitated. The teacher in him recognized this as a teachable moment about gracious acceptance, but the pragmatic single father was wary of stepping into Lila's world, even briefly. "I have 30 minutes left in my lunch break," he finally said. "There's a decent coffee shop across the street." Lila's smile widened. "Perfect." The coffee shop was busy with the lunch crowd, but they managed to find a small table by the window. Hudson ordered a simple black coffee while Lila requested an almond milk latte. He noticed her studying him with interest, and he fought the urge to check if he had pen marks on his face or shirt. "So, you're a teacher," she said once they were seated. "10th grade English," he confirmed. "Going on 8 years now. That's admirable, making a difference in young lives." There was genuine respect in her voice. Hudson shrugged. "Some days it feels that way. Other days it's just trying to get 30 teenagers to care about Shakespeare while they're texting under their desks." She laughed, and the sound was warm and rich. "I can imagine." "Ethan hasn't stopped talking about you, by the way. He's decided you're a superhero disguised as a regular person." "High praise from a 5-year-old, Hudson said, smiling. How is he doing? Much better, though I've instituted a new rule about holding hands in public places. Lila took a sip of her coffee. And what about your daughter, Mia, right? Hudson was surprised she remembered. She's doing great, first grade this year and loving it. And her mother, is she? Lila trailed off, clearly unsure how to politely ask about his marital status. Sarah passed away 4 years ago, Hudson said quietly. Cancer. It was quick, only 3 months from diagnosis to. He didn't need to finish the sentence. I'm so sorry, Lila said, genuine compassion in her eyes. That must have been incredibly difficult. It was. Still is sometimes. Hudson rarely spoke about Sarah's death with anyone outside his closest circle, but something about Lila's direct gaze made him continue. Mia was only 2 when it happened. She doesn't really remember her mom, which breaks my heart sometimes. Lila nodded. I understand that feeling. Ethan's father has never been in the picture. He made it clear when I got pregnant that fatherhood wasn't in his 5-year plan. Her tone was matter-of-fact, but Hudson detected old pain beneath the surface. His loss, Hudson said firmly. Lila's eyes softened. Thank you for saying that. Their conversation flowed more easily after that exchange of vulnerabilities. Hudson learned that Lila ran her own company, a successful tech firm specializing in educational software, and that she'd built it from scratch after dropping out of an MBA program when she became pregnant with Ethan. People thought I was crazy, she said. Walking away from Stanford Business School to start a company while pregnant and alone, but I wanted to create something meaningful, something that would make Ethan proud someday. I'd say you succeeded, Hudson replied, impressed by her determination. What about you? She asked. Did you always want to be a teacher? Hudson nodded. My high school English teacher changed my life. I was heading down a pretty bad path after my parents' divorce, and Mrs. Rivera somehow saw something in me worth saving. I want to be that person for at least 1 kid each year. I bet you've helped more than you know, Lila said softly. The time passed too quickly, and Hudson reluctantly checked his watch. I should get back. The bell rings in 5 minutes. Lila looked equally disappointed. Of course. She hesitated, then pulled out a business card and scribbled something on the back. This is my personal number. I'd love to continue our conversation sometime. Maybe dinner? Hudson stared at the card, a war of emotions raging inside him. Lila was beautiful, successful, and clearly lived in a different world than his. But there had been something in their conversation, a genuine connection he hadn't felt in years. I'd like that, he finally said, tucking the card carefully into his wallet. Her smile was radiant. I'm looking forward to it. As Hudson headed back to his classroom, he wondered if he was setting himself up for disappointment. Women like Lila didn't usually end up with men like him in the real world. But for the first time in 4 years, he felt a flicker of something that resembled hope. Their first official date was at a casual Italian restaurant, Hudson's choice, as he'd been adamant about paying, and fine dining wasn't in his budget. Lila arrived in jeans and a simple blouse, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, looking no less stunning for the lack of designer labels. You look beautiful, he told her honestly as they were seated. So do you, she replied with a teasing smile, taking in his button-down shirt and the sports coat he'd dug out from the back of his closet. Their conversation picked up where it had left off at the coffee shop, flowing naturally between serious topics and lighthearted banter. Hudson found himself laughing more than he had in years, while simultaneously sharing thoughts he usually kept to himself. Can I ask you something personal? Lila said as they shared a tiramisu for dessert. After I just told you about the time I accidentally set off the fire alarm during my first year teaching, I think we're past personal boundaries, Hudson joked. Lila smiled, but her eyes remained serious. Why haven't you dated since your wife died? You're kind, intelligent, handsome. She trailed off, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. Hudson considered the question carefully. Partly time being a single parent and a teacher doesn't leave many free hours. Partly fear, I guess. He paused. And maybe I was waiting for someone who felt worth the risk. Their eyes met across the table, and the air between them seemed charged with possibility. And now, she asked quietly, now I'm sitting across from someone who definitely feels worth the risk. Lila's smile in response was soft and genuine. I feel the same way. As Hudson walked her to her car after dinner, their hands found each other naturally, fingers intertwining. At her car door, he hesitated, suddenly nervous like a teenager on his first date. Lila solved his dilemma by rising on her tiptoes and pressing a gentle kiss to his lips. I'd like to see you again, she whispered. Definitely, Hudson agreed, his heart racing as he kissed her again, more confidently this time. Driving home, Hudson tried to temper his excitement with realism. They came from different worlds. His modest teacher's salary and the small apartment he shared with Mia were a far cry from Lila's successful business and whatever lifestyle it afforded her. But something about her felt refreshingly genuine, untainted by her obvious wealth. Their relationship developed gradually over the next few months. They went on dates when their schedules aligned, introduced their children to each other during casual outings to the park or zoo, and spent hours talking on the phone after their kids were asleep. Hudson learned that despite her success, Lila's life wasn't without challenges. She struggled with guilt over the long hours her work sometimes demanded, worried about spoiling Ethan, and dealt with her own insecurities about relationships after being abandoned during pregnancy. Sometimes I think my money makes it harder to know who I can trust, she confessed one night as they sat on his small balcony, sharing a bottle of wine after Mia had gone to bed. People see the business or the bank account, not me. Hudson took her hand. For what it's worth, I didn't even know you had money when we met. I just saw a worried mom who loved her son. Lila leaned her head against his shoulder. That's exactly why I fell for you, Hudson Scott. The first time she said, I love you was 4 months into their relationship, during a weekend trip to a lakeside cabin. They'd brought both children, who had formed a sweet friendship despite their age difference. After a day of swimming and hiking, Ethan and Mia had collapsed into exhausted sleep, leaving the adults to enjoy the peaceful evening on the cabin's deck. I love watching you with them, Layla said softly, observing Hudson as he gazed at the stars. You're so present, so attentive. It's beautiful. Hudson turned to her, moonlight illuminating her face. I love being with all of you. This feels like, I don't know, like coming home somehow. Lila's eyes glistened with tears. I love you, Hudson. I wasn't looking for this, but I'm so grateful I found you. Hudson pulled her close, his heart full to bursting. I love you too, Layla, more than I thought possible again. Their kiss beneath the stars felt like a promise, a new beginning neither had expected but both now cherished. Their relationship wasn't without challenges. Hudson sometimes felt uncomfortable with the disparity in their financial situations, especially when Lila casually suggested expensive restaurants or offered to pay for things he couldn't afford. They had their first serious argument when she proposed paying for a private tutor for Mia, who was struggling with math. I can help my own daughter, Hudson had said stiffly. I know you can, Lila replied, frustrated. But you're already working so hard, and this would just be one less thing to worry about. I don't need charity, Layla, her eyes had flashed. It's not charity when it comes from someone who loves you and your daughter. It's family helping family. The word family had hung in the air between them, both a question and an answer. Later that night, after they'd both cooled down, Hudson called to apologize. I'm sorry. I've been independent for so long, it's hard to accept help. But you're right, it's not about me. It's about what's best for Mia. And I'm sorry for not being more sensitive to your feelings, Lila replied. We're still figuring this out, but I want you to know that I never see you as less because you earn less. That's not how love works. Their ability to communicate honestly, even through difficult conversations, strengthened their bond. Hudson gradually became more comfortable accepting certain aspects of Layla's wealth, while she made efforts to keep their activities within his comfort zone. 6 months into their relationship, Lila invited Hudson and Mia to move into her penthouse. The invitation came after Hudson's landlord announced a 20% rent increase that would stretch his budget beyond breaking point. "I know it's a big step," Lila said as they discussed the possibility over dinner at his apartment after the children were asleep. "But we're practically living together already, switching between places, and I hate seeing you stress about money when there's a simple solution." Hudson ran a hand through his hair. "It is a big step, and I worry about what it means for us for the kids. What if it doesn't work out?" "Then we'll handle it like adults," Lila said practically. "But Hudson, I'm not asking lightly. I want to build a life with you. I want our children to grow up together. I want to fall asleep beside you every night and wake up with you every morning." "When you put it that way," Hudson said with a growing smile, "it's hard to say no." The transition wasn't seamless. Mia was initially overwhelmed by the size and luxury of Lila's penthouse, while Ethan struggled with sharing his mother's attention. Hudson felt out of place among the expensive furniture and high-tech gadgets. But gradually, they began to feel like a family, not two separate units coexisting, but a new entity with its own rhythms and traditions. Hudson insisted on contributing financially, taking over certain household expenses and establishing college funds for both children. Lila respected his need for independence while helping him understand that true partnership meant sharing burdens and blessings alike. "Your contribution to this family isn't measured in dollars," she told him one night as they lay in bed. "It's in the way you help Ethan with his reading. It's how you taught him to ride a bike when I was too nervous to let go. It's in the security and love you bring to our home." Hudson pulled her closer. "I never thought I'd find this again after Sarah died. A partner, a family. Sometimes I'm afraid I'll wake up and discover it was all a dream." "Not a dream," Lila assured him, kissing him softly. "Just an unexpected gift we both needed to be brave enough to accept." On a crisp autumn day, a year after their first meeting in the park, Hudson took Lila back to the spot where Ethan had been crying by the duck pond. Both children were at school, giving them a rare weekday morning together. "Why are we here?" Lila asked, curious about the nostalgic glint in Hudson's eye. "Because this is where our story began," he said, taking her hands in his. "Right here, where a little boy's tears brought his mother running, and I had the incredible luck to be standing in the right place at the right time." Lila smiled. "The best kind of luck." "I've been thinking a lot about luck and chance and choices," Hudson continued, his voice growing serious. "About how one small moment can change everything. If I hadn't been at the park that day, if Ethan hadn't wandered off, if you hadn't decided to track me down afterward." "But all those things did happen," Lila said softly. "They did. And now I want to make another choice, the most important one." Hudson reached into his pocket and dropped to one knee, revealing a simple but elegant diamond ring. "Lila Kensington, will you marry me?" Tears filled Lila's eyes as she nodded emphatically. "Yes, Hudson, 1,000 times yes." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, a ring he'd saved for months to buy, insisting on this one expense being solely, his Hudson felt a sense of completion he'd never expected to find again. "I can't wait to tell the kids," Lila said, admiring the ring through happy tears. "Actually," Hudson said with a grin, "they already know. They helped me pick out the ring." Lila laughed. "So that's why Ethan's been giggling every time he looks at me this week. I thought he was plotting some mischief." "Well, he was, just the good kind." Their wedding took place the following spring, a modest ceremony in the same park where they'd met, with Mia as flower girl and Ethan as ring bearer. Hudson's fellow teachers, Lila's business partners, and their closest friends gathered to witness two families becoming one. "I never expected you," Hudson said in his vows, his voice steady despite the emotion evident in his eyes. "I was focused on being the best father I could be, on building a secure life for Mia. I wasn't looking for love. But there you were, this incredible woman with your determination and your compassion and your laughter. You and Ethan brought light back into our lives when I didn't even realize how much we needed it." Layla wiped away tears as she delivered her own vows. When Ethan wandered off that day in the park, I was terrified. But that moment of fear led me to the greatest blessing, you, Hudson. You who saw me as just a mother looking for her son, not as a CEO or a wealthy woman or anything else the world tries to define me by. You've taught me that true partnership isn't about equal bank accounts, but equal investment of heart and soul. I promise to love you and Mia for all my days, to build a family together that's rich in all the ways that truly matter. Their honeymoon was a week at a beachfront cottage, modest by Layla's standards, but perfect for the new family they were creating. The children stayed with Hudson's sister, joining them for the second half of the week for their first vacation as an official family. Building their new life together meant continual adjustments and compromises. Hudson continued teaching, finding renewed passion in his work with Layla's encouragement. She adjusted her work schedule to be more present for family dinners and weekend activities, trusting her capable team to handle more responsibility. They bought a new house together larger than Hudson's apartment, but less ostentatious than Lila's penthouse. A home that reflected both of them, with a large yard for the children to play in and enough bedrooms for their growing family. Growing family? Hudson had questioned when Layla mentioned the extra bedrooms during the house hunt. She'd smiled mysteriously. Well, we might want more rooms someday. If things happen. 6 months after their wedding, things did happen. Layla surprised Hudson with the news of her pregnancy one ordinary Tuesday evening, presenting him with a tiny pair of baby shoes after the children were asleep. "Are you serious?" he'd asked, his voice breaking with emotion. "Very serious," she confirmed, placing his hand on her still flat stomach. "Due in about 7 months. The baby, a girl they named Hope, arrived in the winter, completing their family circle." Hudson held his newborn daughter with the same wonder he'd felt when Mia was born, marveling at the journey that had brought them all together. "She's perfect," he whispered, watching as Mia and Ethan peered curiously at their new sister. "Can I hold her?" Mia asked, her 7-year-old face serious with responsibility. "Me too," added Ethan, not to be outdone by his older sister. Layla smiled tiredly from the hospital bed. "Yes to both of you, but sitting down and with Daddy's help." As Hudson watched his children, yes, all 3 of them were his now. Regardless of biology, he felt a completeness he'd never imagined possible after Sarah's death. The path had been unexpected, filled with challenges and adjustments, but leading ultimately to this moment of perfect belonging. "Penny for your thoughts?" Lila asked softly, reaching for his hand. Hudson smiled, squeezing her fingers gently. "I was just thinking about that day in the park, how I heard a child crying and went to help because that's what you do, you help when someone needs it. I had no idea that simple act would lead to all of this. The best things often come from the smallest beginnings," Lila replied. "A crying child, a kind stranger, and here we are a family." "A family," Hudson repeated, the word rich with meaning and promise. In that hospital room, surrounded by the people he loved most in the world, Hudson Scott, once a struggling single father just trying to make ends meet, understood that true wealth had nothing to do with bank accounts and everything to do with the fullness of his heart. And as baby Hope blinked up at her siblings and parents with curious newborn eyes, the story that had begun with tears by a duck pond continued to unfold, not with the drama of their meeting or the adjustments of their merging lives, but with the quiet joy of everyday moments shared by a family built on love, respect, and the courage to embrace unexpected beginnings.